there were some absolutely amazing people in the Touching Hearts network. The transparency, the genuineness, the love for what they did, that shined through right away. They allowed us to ask them anything, and get into the nitty gritty of like, hey, can we make this work?
Come on, somebody. My name is Glenn Leingang, and I serve as the Vice President of Franchise Development here at Touching Hearts at Home. And I am excited today that we are joined by a powerful couple, April and Chad Sutkay. Okay, they are serving Burlington, the Tri-County area in the southeastern part of the great state of Wisconsin. Again, my name is Glenn Leingang, and this is another Conversation from the Heart with Chad and April Sutkay. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Man, doing great, doing great. I know that we had some fun at our conference, and it
Yep.
was so great to meet you guys, face to face, and be able to hear your story a little bit, and then spending some time on Zoom. That was quite an adventure, Chad, you
Yeah,
rascal.
absolutely.
Um, but as we were talking, and by the way, April, thank you so much for joining us.
Of
Okay.
course, of
I
course.
know that you've got a tremendous, calling in front of you with the kids and so forth. But I asked Chad if you could come on because you guys did this together and you started something together in truly an amazing and inspiring story. And I think the best way to do this is for me to be quiet and just I'll ask you guys to share with us your journey to starting Touching Hearts at Home in Burlington and Southeast Wisconsin. Guys, go ahead.
Yeah. So I know she wants me to go ahead and kick this off. So I'll kick it off, and if I start talking too much, Glenn, then you can just be like, no, you shut up. Let's let April chime in here. Um, I I guess just a quick background. We met UW Whitewater in Wisconsin here, and my background, I was more business and operations management. April was biology major, psychology minor. I kind of went out of school and started with a company right away, a manufacturing company, and spent the next 14 years of that working my way up into senior leadership. I oversaw all of the strategic sourcing, sales and operations planning, stuff like that for big Fortune 500 company. And April, you go ahead and share a little bit of your background, and I'll jump back in. But
Right after we got married, I started ultrasound school and I became an ultrasound tech or sonographer. And I did that for several years while we paid off some stuff and our student loans so that I could eventually be home with our kids.
yeah, yeah. And so one piece of that fits into the story a little bit, and you'll see why in a minute here. So part of the stuff that April had to do leading up to doing ultrasound in a couple of the major hospitals around southeastern Wisconsin here, she had to go through clinicals and become a CNA. And so she was serving people in home health. So she was visiting some of the treacherous parts of Milwaukee, and going into people's home and just loving on them and helping them. And she also worked in some nursing homes and in skilled nursing settings, and got to experience kind of that person-centered care. And she gets a lot of that from, and part of our bio even online for Touching Hearts. Her father was a family practice physician in northern Wisconsin for like 40 some plus years. And he just had like an unwavering desire and care for just really treating people well, and just had incredible integrity in what he did. And because it was small town rural Wisconsin, he was He went from delivering babies to in the ER stitching up somebody's, roller skate fiasco to, going into the nursing homes in the area. He oversaw the nursing homes. And, part of, I think where April gets all that too is just from seeing him exemplify amazing integrity in what he did in serving people. And he did it all the way up until he was in his early 70s. And I think the other important piece of that too, which April wouldn't necessarily tell this part, but I will, and it fits into the story a little bit because, sometimes in order to care for people really well, you have to have been a patient yourself at some point, and know what somebody's experiencing. And when she was a teenager, she actually had a brain tumor, and thankfully, it was not a cancerous one or anything like that. But it was, good, baseball size tumor lodged between her brain and her skull, and so she spent a lot of time in hospitals and dealing with being cared for and stuff like that. So she's got kind of a unique experience, I feel like, that way. And so, as she mentioned, when we kind of got married and kicked things off in our lives, she was in that realm, the medical realm, for a handful of years. And then going back almost 14 years ago, we had our first child, and, she became a stay-at-home mom, and I kept working the corporate grind and doing all that stuff. I was thankful to have some really good leadership for a while, so it was easy to kind of have autonomy and work in that realm and everything. But as time went on, it just became more stressful. It was very financially driven, and just brought a great amount of stress on. And so I kind of always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to. I always kind of said, I wasn't built to work for other people all that well. And so I was in that corporate world, and there's so many great things I learned from it. So I don't want to paint it in the wrong light, but ultimately found myself in a spot where that just wasn't going to be a fit anymore. There was lots of international travel that was required, and one of the things that happens along the way in certain settings is if you don't want to go along with what the overall plan is, that it's not gonna be a long-term thing. And so, back in 2018, very early part of 2018, we kind of found ourselves in a spot where we were looking to figure out what this next chapter was going to look like. And it was really interesting because when this all kind of started transitioning, it was one of those things where I also felt like it was a lot of unknown because she wasn't bringing, any, money into the household. I was no longer at that point because I wanted to kind of figure out what this was going to look like. And so in the meantime, I opened a small remodeling business and found very quickly there was a lot of people out there, including seniors, that really needed help with small projects around the house. And it was a very fruitful endeavor very quickly, just because there was such a need in our area. But I knew that I didn't want to have it just be, my physical being, to bring money into the household. We actually knew quite a bit about, franchise systems and models and stuff like that. We had, had experience in direct marketing businesses and stuff. And so, as we looked at what the next chapter was going to look like, we were quite a bit unsure. But I think I just did something as simple one day as like Googling like best franchise opportunities under $75,000, right? And quickly home health care popped up and home care and things like that. And I was like, it's kind of an interesting thing. And right away it kind of popped in my head, well, April's worked in home health. Like that kind of seems like something we might, be able to be successful in and do together. And, a big driving force was it needed to be something meaningful. I'm thankful for my time in the corporate world, but it was not a meaningful experience. It wasn't, you don't go home at the end of the day like, woohoo, I saved the company another $150,000 today. It just didn't have the same rewarding and fulfilling feeling to it. And for us, we're very strong in our Christian faith. And so that was a driving force too, is we wanted to do something that was helping people and giving back and at the same time fulfilling for us. And, you know, when I started kind of looking through what that was going to look like, um, you know, we had also spent some time. I was interviewing for some other jobs, not really sure where we were going to go. And one of them was with a company that provided durable medical equipment. And they had experienced such explosive growth over, a handful of years. And so that kind of stuck back in my head that there was just this huge need out there in senior care support and was only growing and expanding. And obviously what we've seen over the past, 8 years, almost 8 years of doing this is that was absolutely true and continues to be true and continues to be a growing and expanding market, and a desire for families to stay home, individuals to stay home. And
My dad too.
yeah, and her dad lived with us on and off for, several years. And we had to navigate taking him to doctor's appointments and, trying to navigate the ins and outs of this crazy medical world that,
All he wanted to do was be home. And we,
Yeah.
unfortunately, were not able to help him with that as much as we had wanted to, but he was able to stay in our home.
Yeah.
For quite a while. Too.
Yeah, but and through that experience, it relates to how we help families today, but navigating what that looks like and what it takes to set up doctor's appointments and advocate and follow up and all those kinds of things. So, so fast forward, we make a call to a couple of, non-medical home care franchises. I think maybe one other got back to us, but it was just really lackluster and kind of, didn't really have a connection. And when we talked to Touching Hearts, they had gotten back to us right away, and we spent a bunch of time, like a few hours on the phone, and like the next day, like another few hours on the phone. And, really, obviously, in the back of our minds is, can we make this work? It's a little bit scary. Like, there's no money coming into the household right now other than these, side jobs and things that I was doing. And thankfully, we had worked really hard, financially to save up and, for emergencies and situations. And so, one of the things that stood out is we connected really quickly. At the time, Touching Hearts connected us with other owners around the country, and we learned something really quickly. And that was, there were some absolutely amazing people in the Touching Hearts network. The transparency, the genuineness, the love for what they did, that shined through right away. They allowed us to ask them anything, and get into the nitty gritty of like, hey, can we make this work, and it's just, there's something special about an organization. Like sometimes, somebody might set you up with their 5-star, owners and have you talk to them and you're like gung ho. But the fact that we talked to 5 or 6 people and all of them, number one, were available for us, made time for us, talked to us at length, made themselves available for follow-up conversations if we needed it. And it was just something special, and you could feel the sense of togetherness and family. And the other piece of it was we wanted something that we could make our own. And one of the special things about Touching Hearts is, even though it's a franchise, they've always been, and I think being family owned is what's so important in this, is being a family owned franchise. They get it, and they get that, wanting to make it your own. And so there's that great leeway with our organization and our franchise, to follow a system, but also to make it your own and try your own things. And just really be out in your community and creating a presence and relationships, but also having the backing of an amazing brand and a growing brand, and wonderful support people like yourself and others from the home office have just been invaluable in this process. And so maybe that was not the short answer of how we got to starting. We're only up to starting the business at this point. But it's important. I feel like, if somebody were watching this that was considering, could I do this? Could I figure it out? And I feel like we were there and we were feeling that. And, a lot of people that come into franchising, maybe one of the half of the couple is, has a full-time job and is bringing in health insurance, and so it's easy for the other person to go ahead and, yeah, I'll start this, and we've got this over here. And there's only a handful of us even in our network that, are coming in as husband and wife couples that jumped in with no other, income coming in and other things, benefits and stuff like that. And so we had to take a huge leap of faith, and we trusted this is where God was leading us. And looking back on it now, it's like we were freaking crazy for doing it. Nothing made sense for doing it, and right after we purchased the franchise, we found out we were pregnant with our fourth child. And so, nothing says, hey, let's bring another human into this world, like starting a new business and having no income coming in. That just sets you up for just a fantastically good time.
Well, and I remember sitting outside in our backyard on the laptop working on putting together caregiver training stuff, because I did a lot of the caregiver training, and big old pregnant belly and little kids running around in the backyard and just typing away trying to do it. And Chad was working hard trying to at the beginning finish up his obligations in the remodeling business and getting out and talking to people. And at the time, we didn't live in our territory, so it was a little bit more of a drive, and it was a little crazy for a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, it was kind of set up for, like, you look at it from the outside, it's like, boy, these guys are going to have an uphill battle.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
I'm hearing you,
yeah,
if I'm hearing you guys correctly, you know, things are going great, family's going great, you've got three kids with another one on the way, right? Um, but you just felt this stirring, like, if these are my own words, but just felt this stirring, like, hey, I can't be a part of the vision that I was once a part of. But the issue is, it actually paid me good money. You know what I mean? And I really feel like I should do something on my own and put my purpose and all of my gifts and put them to work. And uh, but in order to do that in the stage of life that you guys were in, you had to leave what you were doing, leave the security of that, and take a major risk. Is that a pretty accurate summation?
yeah. And at the time, it didn't didn't necessarily always, it didn't feel like that. But like I said, looking back on it, it's like, man, that was crazy.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think so many people will relate to this because, look, at the end of the day, starting a business is scary, even if you have amazing resources.
yeah,
Um, but it's the ultimate. I'm betting on myself. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it at a high level, and that's why I have the utmost respect for entrepreneurs because they take calculated risk that other people quite simply aren't wired to take, and that's okay. Um, so now we're at this place where the business is about to launch, if I'm hearing you correctly.
yep,
But guess what? You got another one on the way, the fourth, right?
yeah, yep,
Holy cow. All
yeah.
right. So,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think you're crazy for having four kids alone, let alone, starting a business and everything else in the same breath, right? And you know, and even that, on a personal level was a surprise in a way because um, we felt like we were pros, like we've had three kids, like this is a cakewalk. Like if you can have three, you can have four, like no big deal, right? And unfortunately, our youngest, our fourth, he you know in delivery he was under pretty intense duress and almost didn't make it, and uh, he was immediately admitted to the NICU and had to go through some intense therapies. We couldn't for the first 4 days we could only touch him for like an hour a day, not even that. And he, we didn't know what was going on at the time, but because of his difficult delivery, his body was just through a monumental amount of stress, and his organs and everything, heart rate dropping, stopping, breathing and things like that. So it was just a fearful time.
and
And
we were set to move and
oh yeah, I forgot that. Oh yeah, and we sold our house because we were going to move into our territory. So Yeah, so the house, we were trying to get the house ready to be for sale, and
He
I don't
was
know.
3 months old when we moved.
Yeah, so if you've ever like if you've ever had like, where you're trying to move somewhere, but you've lived in your house for 14 years and you haven't gotten rid of most of your crap, like now it's about to get real
Yeah.
quick, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I totally forgot about that. So we had been like painting the inside of the house and fixing things that we just hadn't fixed in a long time, trying to get rid of junk and all this kind of stuff. And so then we have this serious thing going on with him. Thankfully, he was in the NICU for like 4 or 5 days, and did really well with the therapies that they had. And we brought him home, and then we moved a couple of days later.
He ended up being diagnosed with craniosynostosis, where his suture of his skull was fused prematurely. And so he had to have surgery to have that opened up. And he was 3 months old. And I think a week after his surgery, we moved. So it was kind of like bam, bam, bam. And we didn't have any choice once we had already sold the house that we had to be out. So it just kind of went that way. But he did fantastic in the surgery, and everything went great. And he's,
Yeah.
smart little
Awesome.
6-year-old now. And yeah, there's no repercussions from that whatsoever. But
Yeah.
yes, it was a little crazy at the time.
I love to hear that. What's his name?
Cody.
Cody. All right, awesome. I hope to meet Cody one day.
Yeah.
So okay. So we gotta for all the folks listening at home, uh, you know, pretty normal, right? Couple decide to start. No, I'm joking. You know, great couple, smart couple decides to start a business. 3 kids, one on the way. Fourth child has tremendous stress during the birth. Uh, you're putting your house for sale so you can move where your business is
Yep.
into that territory. You sell your house, your newborn son has surgery, and oh, by the way, you're moving into another house and you still have this business. And you're probably looking at each other, I'm assuming, okay, we have to start bringing in some money. Can't imagine the stress load, but uh, again, I'm just going to be quiet. You have me on the edge of my seat right now. So,
Well, and honestly, I have to say that Chad may have been really stressed about it. I had no doubt that he was going to be able to figure it out. I was just kind of along for the ride, and that, well, I know he's going to figure it out. He's going to do what he needs to do. And so I was stressed about obviously a lot that was going on, but I never had any doubt that he was going to make this work.
Chad, how
Yeah.
does that make you feel hearing that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm truly blessed. I mean, we've been married 20 years this 2 weeks ago, right? 3 weeks ago, something like that. And I mean, April's one of those people that, well, like part of the reason I really wanted to marry her to begin with is she's like zero drama, right? And so, and she's always been very trusting and supportive and everything. I mean, there's never been a time where she's ever questioned my thoughts of where we would go. I mean, we may discuss it and everything, but we've just always been on the same team, and thankfully she's trusted my crazy ideas and been along the ride. And I can honestly say, I mean, going through all that, we were never like fighting over any of this, like, and I think, so much of that is, I don't know, we trusted where God was leading us in all this. We didn't understand the whole story at the time, and there'll be more in the story that we'll share that of how it really was a blessing to us. Touching Hearts was a blessing to us at this time, but yeah, I mean, it makes me feel amazing. I mean, I hope that every man can have a wife that's super supportive and a partner in crime. And we don't work a lot on the day to day in the business, but anytime that I needed April's help or I wasn't sure about a client or situation or a caregiver, she was always there and made time amongst all the other things that are going on. She was there to jump in and help out with ever, I mean, never complaining about it. Just we really truly try to work as a team the best we can. And that doesn't mean we don't have disagreements or don't,
Sure.
butt heads on some things once in a while. But when you're pulling in the same direction, it makes it easier even when you hit the bumps. Um, and so, I guess kind of, you want to say something? Oh, fast forward, like, so we purchased Touching Hearts in like March of 2018, and we really didn't have our first client until the fall of 2018. But we thankfully had a couple of bigger clients that came in at that time, and we had the chance to really kind of get our feet wet and get our business going. And then the next year we had a really good first full year. I mean, it was anything we could, ask for, and we were able to bring money into the household. One of the things is I'm a total cheapskate, sometimes maybe to my detriment, but when you have to be resourceful, you look for ways to solve problems, and you look for ways to avoid problems. And one of the things that was so great is the corporate office allowed us to kind of work remotely. We had a remote office for the longest time, just because we just couldn't afford necessarily to be having rent go out every month. And so we made it work, and we found partnerships with local businesses that we could use spaces for free to do trainings and have meetings. And so it's great because we were supporting the local community, and still able to have a lot of flexibility in our family life, with everything going on. So then we continued to thankfully grow year over year. COVID hit, so we stayed remote because everybody was starting to work remote at that time. And what we didn't know is we were about to get kind of sideswiped with a pretty dramatic and life-changing situation. And so right in was it the fall of 2019? Luciana?
No, 2020.
Fall of 2020. That's right. So fall of 2020. So COVID is just like kind of ramping up and everything. And our oldest daughter, who was just about to turn 9 at the time, was diagnosed with a pretty serious illness, very rare illness. And she basically had bone marrow failure. The technical term was severe aplastic anemia. But her body basically stopped producing bone marrow and everything. And so she had no immune system. We found out one day when she, I think I was she had me put a piece of gum or a piece of candy or something in her mouth, and I noticed her gums were all yellow, and we're like, man, that's not right,
We already had a doctor's appointment scheduled at that point because she was tired, and we saw that, and we had a little hard time sleeping that night. We're like, that's not right.
Yeah, so we were wondering, like, is she anemic, or is, what's going on? And so we take her into, her pediatrician, and basically she pulled April out into the hallway, and she's like, I'm not sure what's going on, but we need to transport her via ambulance right now to Children's Hospital. Oh, she let me drive me.
Yeah. Oh, she said so.
She's got to go right now for emergency blood transfusion.
So I guess not that anyone else would know this is important. We've had several ambulance rides with our kids for various reasons. I'm not really sure why that, but she pulled me aside and she said her blood work is really, really off and something is wrong. And she said, if you promise me, because I know that we've been through this before, I won't call the ambulance, but you need to like not stop to eat, not anything, go straight to the Children's Hospital, and they'll be waiting for you. And I asked her, is this cancer? And she said, I don't know. And so I took her into the Children's Hospital. We went in through the ER, and they gave her several bags of blood while we were there. And she woke up at 2 a.m. Like, I feel great. For the first time, I realized, I saw that she had been a shadow of herself for a while, and we just didn't notice because it was so gradual. And we didn't know for 2 weeks
Yeah.
what the diagnosis actually was. What they didn't think it was cancer, but they weren't sure, and they had to send everything out to a lab in California, I believe, to have it tested. So we really didn't know for the longest time, but they sent her home and basically said, well, she you need to be really careful with her because, you know, she can't really play with her siblings or anything, because if she knocks her head, she could bleed. And they kind of gave us all these restrictions, you know, with 3 little siblings.
Yeah.
But
It's tough.
yeah, so we finally got the diagnosis for that. And thankfully, they gave us the opportunity to have her siblings tested. Parents don't usually donate bone marrow, but siblings can. And her younger sister, Violet, actually was able to be a full match, completely blood type and everything.
Wow.
So that's kind of where we started towards, was that was the best way for her to beat this, was a bone marrow transplant.
Yeah. So the most successful, the highest survival rate is when you have a sibling match donor. And so thankfully we had all these kids, so we had more to choose from, because it's like a 25% chance that, a sibling is going to be a match. So we just, we were kind of given a couple of kids to choose from in this process, which was great.
And thankfully her sister's tough as nails, so it was
Yeah.
that one.
So, I mean, without getting into too far in the weeds with it, basically, probably the toughest part of that was her and April had to live at Children's Hospital in the Mac Center for almost 5 weeks. And so now I'm living at home with 3 other kids, running a business. Thankfully, April's mom was a huge blessing and came to live with us. And, she made an awesome helper, but not a really great wife. That's my joke. And I'll tell that to her. She agrees. Um, and so, that was a huge blessing. But this is where kind of the cool piece of the picture comes into play, and you see God's bigger plan unfold sometimes after the fact. But one of the things that they told us is, after she had this bone marrow transplant, she would not be able to be out in the world outside of her house, other than doctor's appointments, for 12 to 18 months, because she had no immune system. And so that also meant that anything we brought into the home could be detrimental to her. It was pretty much, they guaranteed us that she would be back hospitalized sometime in the next 12 months, because we would inherently bring something home to her that even the common cold that you or I would still go to work with could be something that could kill her, because she has no immune system to fight it.
And by the way, this is during COVID, correct?
During COVID, yeah. Yeah, it's and that was the other big unknown, is like they had no idea how COVID would react to somebody without an immune system. And another huge blessing is one of the world-renowned aplastic anemia specialists is right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the Mac Center at Children's Hospital. People come from all over the world to be treated by him. So we couldn't have been in better hands. But guys that are that smart and on that level and dealing with these kind of things aren't necessarily sugarcoating stuff for you. So he's like, well, we joke now. He's like, I don't think COVID will kill her, but it'll probably give her a run for her money. And so we're just like deer in headlights, and we come to respect and appreciate his candidness with us and everything. And our daughter was a trooper with that, but I think a lot of it is we didn't, she knew it was serious, but we didn't make this a big deal. We weren't losing our proverbial crap with the whole thing, and so we went through that process, and she got treated. She had to have low dose chemo. She lost all her hair. She was even a huge sport about that. We got pictures of her taking chunks of hair out and making mustaches and beards with it and stuff like that. And, meanwhile, we're navigating, our business is still growing during this time, and we're just running it ourselves. So we're super thankful on so many levels because number one, we're thankful that Touching Hearts, the corporate office, if they didn't have a heart, they could have said a long time ago, no, you need to have a brick and mortar office. You need to this and that. You need to be there. So being remote was a huge thing for us. I could work from home, help out in between with stuff that they needed and with the other kids and them navigating their mom and dad being all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know how we would have done it
Yeah.
otherwise.
And another huge blessing, if we would have never been self-employed, I would have been in an office with, you know, 200 people that I would have brought something home and everything. So, yeah, fast forward almost 18 months, she was kind of cleared for,
Never hospitalized for coming
yeah,
down
she was
with
never,
anything that
never
long.
rehospitalized. She kind of had like a textbook process that she went through, and healed and doing well and wonderful. And now we're going to be celebrating her 5-year anniversary of her bone marrow transplant this December. And so, it was just, no matter what, I think, everybody goes through stuff, right? And there's people that go through worse stuff than we went through and everything. But I hope that story, and the only reason we share it is not, oh, feel bad for us. It's more like, hey, like you can trust in a plan. You can trust in the Lord to kind of guide you and take you, places. He's going to give you what you need when you need it. And we just trusted that plan, and we're seeing in the hindsight all the pieces of the puzzle that he put together for us to make that happen. And we're here almost 8 years into owning our franchise, and we've doubled the size of more than doubled the size of our company this past year. We're very thankful. We have a beautiful office space. We have office staff now that are helping us, and helping us grow the business and go out there and serve more people and love on them and give them solutions and meet them where they're at. And so that's kind of we fast forwarded through a lot there at the end, but that's a good part of the story.
Yeah. First of all, guys, thank you for being so vulnerable and transparent with our audience and sharing that. I mean, to say it was a challenging time seems a little reckless on my part to say but my vocabulary isn't large enough to think of another word. I want to stay here for a moment because we never know where these conversations are going to go. And truthfully, the idea has always been that it would be a conversation from the heart. And so, I think I'd like to just stick with the theme of and ask a few questions if I may, but stick with the theme, a word that you used early on. Uh, I believe Chad used it, but it may have been April, so I want to give proper credit. Um, a team. And, you know, it, that word really resonated with me because it, just at first glance with my own 2 ears, I just heard, it wasn't just a husband and wife team. It was Violet saying, "Hey, I'm gonna, I want to be a part of the team, if you will. I want to help my sister." It was about your brother, I mean, excuse me, your mother-in-law who came in and stayed. It was about April, your father, who laid a framework for what integrity looks like for you, and it enveloped your whole life and career and so forth and so on. And so I just want to, that word really, and then your faith. I mean, look, you mentioned it several times, and certainly I don't want to, and I don't think our listeners want to act like I didn't hear it. I mean, let's talk about it, if that was important. The idea is, though, that we would hopefully inspire someone. There may be somebody that's walking through a situation similar to what you guys walk through. And I can't imagine anything worse than, one of your kids being sick. It just seems you have no control and you still have to lead your family. And clearly you guys did it through many different obstacles, challenges, many different life changes, but the team stuck together. I- if you could say anything at all to a couple that may be sitting on the other side of a computer that's listening to this, tell us really how you got through this in terms of, there are going to be some dark days and there are going to be some days that are are harder than others. But you guys did it, you made it. And anything that you guys desire to share about that, I think could be very impactful for our listeners. So just wherever that leads you in that very long question, I guess I asked. Let me throw a question mark behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of how we operate very well as a team is recognizing where our strengths and weaknesses are. Um, to give an example, as we were going through all of this with Vienna and we found out that Violet was a viable donor, I tend to get a little bit more drugged down in everything, and think about it a lot. And whenever we had something where we had to talk to the kids about something, I deferred to Chad because Chad, it's simple. This is what we do. Hey, Violet, this is great news. You get to help your sister. And he made it very simple. And it was just like, oh, okay, that's great. I get to help my sister. And she even said it when she went into the hospital was, they asked her, what's important today? I get to help my sissy. And I would not have been able to do that. I would have gotten emotional about it. And so I just stepped back on that. And because I know that that's not my strength.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of it is just knowing when it's time to step aside and just let the other person take a lead on it when it's not your realm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah. And I kind of mentioned it before, like, you gotta, just in general, you see a lot of couples that aren't, it's almost like they're pulling in opposite directions, and I often feel like, I would love to someday, even work with other couples and stuff too, and help them be successful in their relationship because, uh, it's not about a perfect relationship. It's about agreeing on that we're moving in this direction together and having respect for each other and knowing your strengths and weaknesses, being able to talk openly about things even when it's difficult, even if that means you got to do it by text message, whatever you can do to open the door to communicating, and I guess that's the great thing that, April's always been a wonderful co-pilot. It doesn't mean she can't fly the plane on her own. It just means she's running these parts of the controls and I'm over here running these parts of the controls and we're looking out for each other, and I know not everybody is has the same world beliefs or faith or anything like that, but that grounds us, and I think, the deeper we continue to dive into that as lifelong students, it's God's not isn't promising us that things aren't going to be challenging. In fact, he's promising us the opposite, that things are going to be challenging.
And there's no quota on bad things that can happen and tough
Yeah.
things. We've talked about that too. There's no quota.
And it's hard not to get negative about it. It's it makes us nervous even when we take the kids in for their annual checkup. It's like our joke for the longest time was, let's just stop taking them in for checkups because every time we do, they have to take an ambulance ride. It's a bad joke, but it was kind of like, the last thing I want is to see April calling when she's getting done with one of the kids' checkups or something. So it's hard not to get like what's next, what's next, and we know there's just going to be things, and but when you know that, and in our faith, we know that there's a plan, and we don't understand the plan, and sometimes you don't understand the plan, things that have happened until after they've happened, and you can see a little bit more of the picture. But that grounded us in the whole thing, in we have a great support system, um, through family and friends and our church and everything like that. And, so I'm just, I don't know, a firm believer that we weren't like second guessing ourselves through all this. Like we never thought like, oh, we're idiots. Why are we doing this? Why did we, do this? Why are we selling the house now? Why are we, starting this business? Like we just felt like we just need to keep taking it one day at a time and moving forward and being there for each other and rowing the boat in the same direction. And man, you can move mountains when you can do those kinds of things. And so my hope for anyone out there that's maybe even just whether it's anybody doing a business or anything or touching hearts or as a couple, get it together first and start rowing the boat in the same direction and realize that it's for everybody's benefit. It's to grow together. It's to experience life together. It's to, you know, bring you, hopefully closer together along the way as you navigate the waters and the obstacles and stuff like that. Yeah, so I don't know if we're answering your
No.
question.
And to go off of that too, we've talked about my dad being such a huge influence, and one story that I've thought of a lot and that kind of plays into this about God works everything for your good. Sometimes you have to actually, your part is to see it and to recognize it. And when my parents were first married, my dad was working in a factory, and they had not had any plans to do anything different. And my mom was pregnant, and she ended up having a miscarriage a little bit further along in the pregnancy. And my mom would tell me this story that my dad just said, well, I guess this is my cue and my sign that maybe I should go to medical school. And he took that horrible thing that happened to them and he turned it into this. I mean, we didn't find out some of the fantastic things he did for people because he was a very humble man. We didn't find out until his funeral some of the things that he did for people, and we still hear stories sometimes. And it came from a tragedy. And
Wow.
that was just how he looked at things. And I've always been a firm believer in that things that happen that are bad, there is good that comes out of it, but you have to be willing to see it and sometimes actually pursue it and not just sit idly by and, God, tell me why would this be good? Sometimes you actually have to look for it and pursue it, and do your part on that end.
Yeah. As I hear your story and I talked about team, and I really just feel like for the folks that are listening at home, there's just so much to digest here. And but some key components, I believe, you know, as surely as sparks fly upward, you will have trouble in this life. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And our response to that kind of dictates not necessarily the outcome that we desire, however, it can influence it. Because sometimes we can do everything right and still get a negative outcome, right? Like that's out of our control, out of our hands. And I really am sensitive to people that may be listening that may have, their story may have turned out a little different than Violet's. And I just want to encourage you because I think April just made an amazing point that her dad, if I heard you correctly, decided to become a medical doctor after working in a factory after his wife had a miscarriage. And so what could have been a, life-altering, marriage-altering experience, it certainly was, but it was shifted for good. And it made a tremendous impact, excuse me, on it seems like countless people in your area.
Yeah.
And so I guess in summation, you know, we're all on a boat together. We're on some boat, and whatever boat we're going to be on, let's make a decision to make that boat better, right? Like, and who are we letting on our boat? April and Chad talked about friends, family, church folks that they had a great relationship with, that they could be vulnerable with in their time of incredible need. Um, Sometimes I think we go through these times in life, and instead of we were not meant to live this life and operate on an island alone. And sometimes when troubles arise, it's our human tendency to just let me get away, let me figure this out, and we release the great assets that God Himself, if that's what you believe in, has given you. I always say sometimes the greatest potential lives right down our kitchen, across the guest bathroom, in the third bedroom. Okay. And sometimes we look for potential in so many different places when let's just use what's in our hands. And um, I just want to tell you guys both, and you really inspired me. I took a lot out of your story, and um, I know that if nothing else, it made a tremendous impact on me because it reminds me of some things, some truths that I may have misplaced. You can get successful, you can do things, and you just think it's because of you. It's really not because of me. It's probably because of a bigger picture, and I just get to play a part in it, or whatever the case may be. But
Yeah.
you guys did it. You let people on your boat. You didn't sail to an island. You didn't try to protect um, your own sanity or feel like people are going to judge us a certain way for not handling a situation however they feel like we should. You said, no, no, no. Guess what? I need you on my boat. And right now, my boat's headed towards a big city because I need to be around people. And if it's only 15 people, then it's going to be 15 people on this boat. But I'm going to, I need you to believe in me. I need you to just cry with me. I need you to laugh with me. I don't know how long this season's going to be, but we're going to be in this for a bit of a season. Can you come on my boat with me? And we need people on our boat, but also we need to be willing to get on other people's boats as well.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that you guys are uh, willing to hop on some other folks' boats, share your story, and let's see where this thing goes. The story's still being written.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to, I guess, finish it. I'm feeling like maybe we're going to wrap up our conversation a little bit here, but, um, this is the best business. I mean, and to be in business for yourself is the best thing. And my hope for people that want to, um, want to do something or have that entrepreneurial itch is to go for it and surround yourself with good people. Get more, like, to use your analogy, get people on your boat that are going to encourage you, uplift you, support you, and help you drive that direction. I mean, our family must have thought we were like just off the wall crazy and all this, you know. And it's, but like we get to day in and day out, we get to go out and help families that aren't sure what to do. They're stressed out. They're navigating uncharted waters, to stick with our nautical theme here. Um, and they, some of them are lost, and we get to go in there through this great business that our founder, Renee Peterson, brought to all of us, and go out there and serve people, love on them. And, I think that's the one thing that we really try to do in our office is, when every caregiver that we train, every office person, I'm like, I want you to create experiences for these people, these families, by using your gifts. And if all that is, if you feel your only gift is listening, then use that one. If you feel it's singing and playing a guitar, use that one. If you feel it's baking for them, use that one. But it's just awesome that we get to go out every day and meet these people in some really tough spots and bring some sunshine into their day,
Yeah.
and help them steer that ship a little bit, and be a part of their story. And, you know, having the freedom in our day. I mean, some of my favorite times are I leave at 11 o'clock to go help make lunch and have lunch over at the house with the kids. And, sometimes we're, you know, navigating explosions from little people. Sometimes it's, Dad, look what I made. Oh, I did this, and oh, I got this done, and or oh, can we go do this? And that's great. Sometimes it's just knowing that you've got great people on your team, so you can go golf at a charity golf outing, or you can go up north together as a family. So like I hope that anybody looking at watching this video or listen to podcasts, um, I hope if they're looking to create a lifestyle for themselves, and they can be driven enough to just grind at it and put the right people in the boat with them, and learn and make mistakes and not worry about failure. Um, it's it's not like we're even like some massive company, but what it has become, even in this short time, has been an amazing blessing to our family, financially, from a standpoint of being able to have people on our team and do things for them, to help them out, and create opportunities for them and spaces they can grow. And
Well, and even to have an example for our kids that they can do things on their own. Our oldest, Vienna, is now, at 13 years old, is getting jobs and wanting to do stuff on her own and wants to be an entrepreneur. And it's great to see that too, just as to be an example of a team and working for something together for our kids too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's fun because you see your kids, like, all of a sudden they're sponges, right? So they pick up your good, your bad, and your ugly. But it's fun when I'm walking around the house and all of a sudden I hear our 6-year-old like just playing with trucks and stuff, and he's like, "Good afternoon, Touching Hearts. This is Chad. Can I help you?" Right? And here they are learning a great customer service, call answering, answering a call and stuff, little things like that. And they pick up on the stuff we're doing, and how they've met some of our team, they've met some of our clients. I do some volunteer work in memory cafes. I've incorporated the oldest kids into that to get some intergenerational experiences with people living with dementia. And so
9-year-old Brady is chomping at
yeah,
the bit
now
to go.
all the kids, now all of them are like, "Dad, can we go to the memory cafe?" I don't know if they just want the treats or whatever, but they want to go. I want to go to the memory cafe, Dad. So, yeah, giving your family experiences and all this is so much fun, and just a great learning experience for them. Also, I didn't mention we homeschool all 4 of them too. So,
Oh, golly.
just we we like crazy apparently, but
No, I'm joking.
but it's given some of these cool experiences too,
Yeah.
that otherwise they wouldn't have maybe had to come across. So
So wrapping it home, I'm going to ask, I want to give somebody that may be listening, they say, well, that's great. It seems like they had a great family, awesome friends, and were already plugged into a church. I want to ask a practical question for somebody that may be listening that says, I'm going through a terrible situation right now. I live in a different state than my family and friends, whatever the case may be. From a very practical perspective, what would you guys encourage this listener to maybe, you know, get connected with people, go to church? How do they get connected with people? It's imposing to walk into a big building. Nobody knows what's going on in your personal life. Let's make it very practical. What would you guys do if you found yourself living, you know, tomorrow in Texas, and let's pretend like I'm not here. So no one, I'm just making that up. And but you gotta there's something that's come up in your life and you need relationship. You just need some help. What would you guys advise them to do from a practical perspective?
Yeah, I I think we come across a lot of people that um, it's been very few that I've ever come across that's never been to church before. Usually somebody growing up went to, Easter service or Christmas service or something with a grandparent or something like that. And, I think it's, I think there's been a lot of folks out there that really haven't embodied what we're called to do to serve others and meet them where they're at and stuff like that. And so we meet a lot of people that have been very turned off by the church and rightfully so. Um, I think our pastor said it great once, and I hope I don't screw this up, but um, you know, the church is not a place for perfect people.
Mhm.
It's a place for imperfect people who have come to realize that um, they need to be saved by grace, and it's a hospital, right?
That's right.
It's a hospital for the
That's
broken. And
exactly
so
right.
I guess if somebody's had a bad experience or um, they just have had different influences in life that have led them in different directions, um, you know, you can know real quickly. Or I guess I would encourage maybe to step back. Um, we had to go to several churches before we found, what we were looking for. I was not raised in the church, so I wasn't like it's not that I didn't have, faith in some way, shape, or form, but I wasn't raised in the church. April was raised in the Catholic Church, and um, but we were looking together for something for us that made sense, and um, we had a friend invite us to a couple of different things, and we went and we were open. But before that, we had kind of stepped into a couple places, and man, the first thing, I always say try to go to the same place twice and say hello to somebody. But sometimes you wait and see if somebody says hello to you, because I'll tell you what, if you walk in, we walked into a church probably 3 or 4 weeks straight, not one person came and said hi to us and introduced themselves or anything. And we
Yeah.
were like, well, that doesn't seem right.
Right.
And so we thankfully had somebody that did invite us to a couple of things, or somebody said, "Hell, I wanted to let you know I prayed for you and your family or whatever." And we were kind of like, "Well, that feels weird," but we went with an open mind and stuff. And it's hard to that's a good question you ask, because it's really hard to answer that having not been in that realm.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm always of a belief that if you're feeling lost, one thing you can do to take that feeling out of being internal and make it more external is to go serve somebody else and add value to them. And God has a way of working in people's lives, and when you're going out there and you're adding value to others, number one, it takes your mind off of where you're at, and gives you just an encouragement in someone that you've served or helped and added value to them. And sometimes it's just in the littlest ways of, opening a door for somebody, or it's, hearing that a family member is having a hard time and you go sit with them or bring a snack over or a meal or something like that. Um, I think the first thing is you just have to be willing,
Yeah.
you have to be willing to take a step. It's like working out, right? I need to work out. It's hard, it's easier not to work out.
Yeah.
But sometimes just putting yourself in a position to take a step um, opens those doors for the other steps.
Right.
Well, I would also, and that's why I was nodding my head so much. The first thing that came into my mind when you asked the question is go to where the servants are. Look for people who are serving others and form relationships and start there. Start putting your focus outward on how you can help others. I've seen, because we've been in the childhood cancer realm, because that was the floor that our daughter stayed on, was I saw a lot of people have a lot of healing when they took that pain and used it to serve others, because they knew what that felt like. And so they knew they were in a perfect position to help others because they knew exactly what that felt like. And if you go to where the servants are and you help other people hand in hand, I think that that's so powerful. And I really feel like that brings you one step closer to that relationship with God just by serving other people.
Yeah. Such great points. Really great points. Um, Guys, thanks so much. I guess I'll close with, if you find yourself in that category, I would encourage you to go taste and see. Go with an open mind. Go with the mindset of a relationship. I happen to believe the most important relationship is with Jesus Christ. It's not about a relationship with religion or church. Um, it's about a relationship with the one who paid the ultimate price, laid himself on a cross, defied death, um, honored his Father God every single step of the way, and now is seated at the right hand of God and petitions on our behalf. And he stands at the door and knocks. And I just want to encourage anyone that if you feel like or hear, or maybe your heart just feels like there's somebody knocking, um, I would encourage you to go taste and see, because I know firsthand it can change your life. And not only change it, but I think you'll find that you're able to utilize your life and find purpose, just like this amazing couple, in ways that you could not have dreamt or imagined. Um, I don't want to go back to the dark days of my life. Um, I wouldn't pay a nickel to go back to some of those dark days. But as I look back at my life, I wouldn't uh, take $100,000 to change those experiences, because they made me who I am today. I see things differently, and I'm just thankful that I get to connect with people like April and Chad. And I genuinely hope that you find your people to connect with. And if you can't find anyone, give us a call, shoot us an email. Um, it all starts with relationship. And so this was another conversation from the heart. I want to thank April and Chad Sutkay for sharing their incredible story, and in with a tremendous humility. And and I just want to say, on behalf of all of us at Touching Hearts at Home, we're so proud of both of you. We're delighted that we're on the same team together. And let's just continue to turn cities upside down by serving folks that are in the fourth quarter of their life with incredible grace, incredible empathy, and let's make the fourth quarter the best quarter. I believe we can do that.